Hallo, ich bin Rootcat. Herzlich willkommen zum großen
Hello, I'm
CCC
Rootcat,
Jahresrückblick.
and welcome to the
Allein die
big
Woche seit
CCC
Weihnachten
yearly
hat irgendwie
review.
bewiesen, dass
The
wahrscheinlich
past
gäbe es
week
eine Pantone-Farbe des
has
Jahres, ihr Name
shown,
Clusterfuck wäre
well,
und nicht zartrosa.
if there were a Pantone color of the year, it would
Abgesehen
be
davon
clusterfuck and
hat aber
not
Max Rosa, der
not
Datenwissenschaftler,
pink.
gesagt, eigentlich ist es gefühlt seit
But
21 Jahren bergauf gegangen und man könnte vielleicht sagen,
it
dass man es
feels
mehr spürt, es ist eine Zunahme
like
an
it's
Empathie,
been going
was nie schlecht ist,
uphill
außer vielleicht bei besorgten Bürgern.
for the past
Was
20
sonst noch los
years.
war in diesem Jahr, das erzählen uns jetzt Frank,
The other things that
Constanze,
have been
Linus
happening
und
this year,
Nexus. Herzlich willkommen auf der Bühne.
we're going to hear that from Constanze, Linus, Nexus, and sorry.
Stühle sind überbewertet.
Chairs are overrated.
Jetzt ist es an. Okay. Wir begrüßen euch sehr herzlich zum CCC Jahresrückblick.
To the yearly review of the Chaos Computer Club.
Versucht, Jahr so ein bisschen aus den Augen des CCCs
We tried to look at the past year from the eyes of the CCC. We want to talk of our activities, but also speak about the topics that have influenced our public relations work, but also about the decentralized topics. And as always, we have to apologize for not being able to speak about everything. But we tried to take into account the most interesting and most fascinating, probably. But we have to say that we are going to be focusing on the nationwide activities of the Chaos Computer Club. But of course, as far as our activism is concerned, the decentralized work is far more important than we can show here. There's a small new thing this year. We usually review the year from January to December, sequentially. But the statistics part used to be very long in the past years, where we review some facts and figures in public relations and membership, and we've shortened that, and we're going to keep it quite short. We understand that journalists like to publish lots of numbers, but we thought we might shorten it a bit. Let's start the year, and we start with pretty good numbers as far as our members are concerned. This year, our office, whom we'd like to thank at this opportunity,
auch mit wirklich echt zunehmender Verwaltungstätigkeit
because they've had a lot more work this year. Just so you can interpret these numbers, they start in 1986, and we're now over 9,000.
Und damit ihr auch die Zahlen, die das Office hier auf diese Grafik geplottet
hat, verstehen könnt, so that you can understand the numbers that the office has plotted here. The orange-red part is our aliens, because we're a galactic community. So they're the members who are not part of a certain alpha, who don't belong to a certain group. The blue ones are from alphas. Who doesn't know what an alpha is? The alpha is an experience sharing circle. As you can see, our club was founded in the 80s when our terminology used to be a bit different. But they do what it says on the tin, really. They give people, you know, a local CCC office with a certain structure, and they receive funding from the central CCC, but they're really where most of the work happens. In case you don't know if there is an alpha in your town, have a look, there usually is one. And then there's the chaos meeting, which is for people who, yeah, we don't know yet, but we want to meet, and at irregular intervals, let's try and do something.
Wir wollen vielleicht mal noch über diesen etwas dunkelroten, ich will nicht rotbraun sagen, wir haben keine rotbraunen
Speak about this dark red part. I don't want to call it red-brown because we don't have any red-brown. Oh yes, we do have red-brown members, which is people who are forcibly excluded, for instance, for not paying their membership fees several times in a row.
Ganz schlimme Inkasso-Brigaden. Traditionell haben wir auch die Karte, die uns auch dieses Mal wieder geschickt wurde, mit dem Hinweis, dass wir immer noch diesen
sent to us from our office, and they reminded us of the white spot on the map. The greener the map is, the denser our membership figures are, and the white spot is Bautzen in Saxony. I'm not sure we can do a lot about that. And on the right part of the slide, you see the how our membership developed by quarter. And guess where that large peak comes from?
Genau. Tatsächlich sieht man ganz deutlich diesen Ausschlag nach Beginn
There's an obvious peak after Snowden published his leaks.
Ganz deutlich dieser Anstieg festzustellen.
It's very obvious in our membership figures. We could interpret it differently, of course, but that's what we find most likely.
Sogar mit einer Honecker-Mehrheit. Wir haben außerdem den Trend, den wir hier auch schon länger zeigen,
There's also a trend that we've been showing for quite a while now.
Deutschland ausbreiten.
We're extending beyond Germany. This is the list of countries that we're in now. Of course, the majority is still in Austria and Switzerland. But the list has grown by 9 or 10 countries. I don't know if it's people who move away and tell us that their addresses change, but I don't think hackers really do tell us that addresses change, and I'm not sure our office likes to process that. Yeah, what would be more interesting would be an address change to Orbit ISS or something. We'd like to see that. Yeah, but we don't want to speak too much about numbers. We want to speak about contents. That's what this is about. And I think it's been an interesting year in lots of ways. We want to tell you about some things that both we did and that others did and told us about. Although this is not particularly something, it doesn't just pertain to 2016, we've been seeing it in quite some years now. And we want to talk about subjects that have been, discussed for years now. And there were some smaller things that concerned us, and we'll just start. Yeah, I think we talked about this last year, the Apple TV app that some members of the Chaos Computer Club in Frankfurt built to allow people to watch CCC content on the Apple TV. And there was a fair bit of criticism from Apple because they didn't want to have some of these talks from the from the 32nd Congress on their platform. These are the talks that they didn't like, and they are shown in the app, but when you click them, it says this talk has been censored by Apple, and you have to go online to watch it.
Diese Lösung war innerhalb des Clubs durchaus unterschiedlichen Meinungen ausgesetzt. Also es gab einige, die gesagt haben, wir lassen uns doch nicht von Apple erzählen, was wir
There was a fair bit of discussion about this solution. There were some people who didn't like it at all and didn't like Apple censoring our talks. But there were also those who said, hey, it's great to actually be,
Und so ist es jetzt auch, die App zeigt die Talks nicht direkt an, sondern mit einem
get
Link und
this
dann
kind
kann
of
man da, glaub ich,
exposure
direkt draufklicken
for
und sich
Apple
den
censorship.
Talk anschauen. So wurde das dann am Ende gelöst.
So that's how it was solved in the end.
Apple TV-Kritik übt oder nicht, die App
And whether or not you want to
in mehreren
criticize
Sprachen. Also
Apple,
die haben sich
the app
die Mühe
has
gemacht,
been used quite a lot,
zur Verfügung zu
and
stellen. Und
it's
wird auch
available
benutzt.
in several
Insofern,
languages. It's being
die
used.
Kritik mal dahingestellt. Es ist
So
einfach,
whatever the
für viele Leute einfach
criticism,
nutzbringend, um die Inhalte, und zwar
it's very
vielen
useful for lots of
Jahren,
people
sehen
because
zu
you
können.
can watch content from lots and lots of
Nachdem
years.
die App eigentlich komplett abgelehnt wurde, kann man sie jetzt klicken.
And after the app was initially rejected, you can now use it.
Talks schon etwas älter sind. Dieser Bluetooth-Hacking State of the Art war am 22C3. Also alleine diesen Talk zu zensieren, ich meine, naja.
Das ist eine sehr späte Ehre, die dem Vortragenden dazu teil geworden ist.
It's very hard to.
Da ging es übrigens, also wenn sich jemand für die, also der CCC Frankfurt hatte auch
CCC Frankfurt had documented this and wrote about it.
Von Seiten von Apple da so, unsere Richtlinien lauten, aber so haben sie das irgendwie begründet. Und uns ist natürlich auch
Apple's response to our policies was not entirely clear.
Okay, aber das ist jetzt nichts, wo wir uns lange dran aufhalten wollen, nicht wahr?
But I don't want to spend too much time on this. Now talking about some of the more the traditional things we've done.
Wahl ist ja wichtig, Wahlmanipulation, Wahlbeeinflussung.
Vote manipulation.
Der CCC Mainz hat festgestellt, dass man bei deren
CCC Mainz had discovered that
ein Briefwahlformular online bestellen konnte.
that you could order a voting form online. You only needed your name and birthday, nothing more. And you became, and because of that, you could download a PDF with the address of the person who had actually registered to vote. And they did a wild bit of research and managed to get the birthday from Wikipedia of the regional leadership. And then
das grobe Jahrzehnt, in dem der junge Mann geboren ist, zu brutforcen.
And then they brute forced the specific year he was born in. And then discovered his address, and then made a nice news release from the CCC Mainz released. But there was small, amusing things that a hackerspace can do to cause amusement for the media's interest. So it was interesting that you could so easily pull the addresses of all the local citizens from the internet.
Aber sie haben sich quasi so ein bisschen umbenannt in CCC SWI, weil sie sozusagen Wiesbaden mit integrieren wollten.
And they also were trying to at the same time integrate the Wiesbaden CCC chapter.
Keine Vorschrift nach dem AFA-Kreise sprechenden Namen haben müssen.
Okay. Gibt ja noch ein paar andere
A few other
im Prinzip ein bisschen so
things to talk about, longer-term projects.
Auch noch im Januar passiert ist, wo wir
But they also happened in January.
Oder uns über die Nachwehen des Kongresses unterhalten, wollen wir aber trotzdem noch mal reden.
So I'd like to talk a little bit more about them.
Geschichte. Der CCC hatte ja damals
There's a
daran
few.
mitgewirkt, dass es in Hamburg ein Transparenz.
In Hamburg, there was a transparency workshop.
Sich über die Jahre,
We spoke throughout the year.
Bestimmte Projekte ergeben, zum Beispiel die Frage, wie man gegen
We
die
worked about how you can work
vorgeht.
Also,
against
worum es dabei geht, ist halt das Hamburger Transparenzgesetz
this
eigentlich auch sagt, dass
this Hamburg transparency workshop.
mittelbare Staatsverwaltung, also landeseigene Betriebe, Gesellschaften,
saying that university, state-owned institutions and so on, that all of these have to be under the transparency law, and the Handelskammer, the economy chamber didn't want that. They did a trial against it, and the Handelskammer tries to defend the old version of the law, and it's just a matter of time before this passes, but it will just take some time because this always takes long. The people in Hamburg are very active with this. In Thuringia, the transparency law will be introduced, we help with that too. Where we can get rid of these white specks on the map to reduce this a bit. In Rheinland-Pfalz, Palatinate, it got more transparent. If you want to know more today, there's Irrenes Staatlich speech where there's more talk about it, more than we can do now. We don't really want to talk about the Handelskammer Hamburg, but it's more of a strategic thing. We have to ask ourselves, if we do a transparency law and write it into law, and if you say in the transparency register there have to be things, you have to say who is supposed to put things into there. After administration law, we can see which institutions have to obliged to put their information in there, and we have to go about it strategically. And we don't know how fast administration law works for administration jurisdiction, but okay. But maybe it will get finished before the Berlin airport. Okay. So much for January. In February there was a debate which got through the whole year. There was at the core just an attacker who was called terrorist because, you know, there's a difference between terrorism and attack. And the debate was about when international public thing between Apple and the FBI got public, and this registers should allow law agencies to get backdoors into it, and the discussion got into Germany as well, where our positions were pretty clear. Yeah, you have to encrypt this. The Bundesverfassungsgericht said, the Constitutional Court said this is the right. And the discussion was, do we need backdoors, do we not need them? What about justice departments going dark? Went through the whole year, well until the last few weeks. At the end, in the US, the FBI got their backdoor, but the question what role encryption is playing in law enforcement will go on. We can see in Germany that the federal government wobbled a bit, but got back to the lines of crypto politics in Germany, which says strong encryption. We don't want backdoors. And the work we did over years paid there, even if there are some extremists at the edges of the party, didn't move much. What law enforcement did was say that, well, we will try to get around encryption with Trojan horses or weak spots and try to get into there without backdoors. Centralize these things. There was an abbreviation for it. I think it's CITES or something. Can't really remember. Where they try to put together their resources to get around encrypted messenger apps or into telephones and stuff. At the end, this is what the ministers of interior are saying. We want law enforcement to get into it, even though there's encryption. Said, okay, let's build some Trojans. We have to get into that. But we don't want any hard backdoors into crypto. as he said, security through encryption and security even though there's encryption. Which is a nice logo slogan or something. And it's so nice to have these two ideas of security, which is like a red line through the whole year. Which is security for me, not for everyone else. And this topic is in a program, in a schedule a lot. Kurt Opsai on day 1, the fight for encryption. Joseph Cox on day 2, law enforcement are hacking the planet. And Christopher Segoyan, who's at the SIU right now. And you go with stopping law enforcement hacking, which was the topic, I think. This topic that we have more encryption and get more state-regulated trillions. There will be more focus on that in our schedule in the next few years and decades, sadly. These were two things I noticed about this thing, because they weren't really linked to the CCC, but a lot of media ask about this. I noticed internationally a lot of was much talking about it, because, even though it's an inter-American discussion. But it's of course a big developer of hardware, and the debate if law enforcement may get into the core of private life. This discussion has changed, and I thought that the wind has changed, and more people have seen that this is kind of like an external mind. And with the telephone, they noticed a thing, and I think it's changed since the first crypto debates 2 or 3 years ago. At the core, it was the same questions, of course. Just wanted to add one thing. Associated Press, Advice Media have a trial against the FBI. They want to know how the iPhones got hacked. They want to get the information from the FBI, how they did it. It is not over yet. We will get back to this, and there will be more cases of this. But let's go on.
Ja. Wir sind ja manchmal auch, also wir bemühen uns Konstruktivität.
We try to be constructive mostly.
Also
sometimes.
Tatsächlich jetzt, wo man die Debatte gerade so ein bisschen
angehört
hat,
when we heard
Thema
the debate,
ging so ein bisschen das Thema Smart Home, was ja
what was about the topic of smart home, which went through the press a bit. The land of Rhineland-Palatinate
in Zusammenarbeit mit dem Chaos Computer Club
work together with the Chaos Computer Club to have a recommendation, sadly only this, made it how these smart home solutions should look, which is a step in the right direction. We do have more wishes that it went a bit further. So we just only did an overview on CCC what we want more than that, and gets regulated a bit.
Nicht mehr nur unser ausgelagertes Gehirn, sondern wir haben unsere ausgelagerte Überwachungszentrale zu Hause, die uns den ganzen Tag zuguckt.
We don't just have an external brain, but our external surveillance security when we open our fridge and when we go to bed and stuff, if we are in the holidays away. And there are some things we really want. Basically, that there is not as much data stored, which goes against the trend. Yeah, if you look into the systems, they are in the cloud, and because there is data wealth. Yeah, that's great. You get this cloud system in your home because you can build it out, because without it you're sitting in the dark and it's cold, and there are hackers who attack these. And then it went dark and cold, and the neighbor knows when you're home. So there's much to do,
This
aspect, something happens that humans outside of the CCC are trying to work with it, that the German state tries to work about it. It's very good, and I like that. Well, before this debate, at the beginning of the year,
Internet of Things.
This Internet of Shit, Internet of Things. The question that with the telecom modem later in the year changed a bit in the year how it got talked about. So we got there early.
Okay.
We have to apologize in case we had missed something. The CCC has quite a bit of events. We would like to mention them, and the question is, why would we choose some instead of others? They are randomly chosen through compatibility with our calendar. We didn't get the opportunity to visit every single one of these central events. It's sad for the people who had worked on these that we have had to forget some of them. For example, I wasn't at the Datenspuren this year. I wasn't at the Gulasch Programmiernacht. There's quite a lot of events. But I'd like to compliment the Easter egg event. It was quite a bit of an enjoyment in a small amount of people. And it was nice to celebrate this event.
Das heißt, auch dort sind die Vorträge der Nachwelt für die Nachwelt behalten worden, wie auch hier. Es gab einen
Of course, the VOC recorded everything, so these talks were recorded for posterity. There was also a sumo wrestling match with robots, which you're going to be able to see on this stage as well tonight. And of course, there we had the Easter egg mugs. I really like these small CCC events. They're always a gem in my calendar, and I'm very sad that I wasn't able to visit more of them this year.
Deswegen haben wir hier auch nochmal eingeblendet. Also VOC und überhaupt die Tatsache, dass man auch die kleineren Veranstaltungen aufzeichnet, wiederfindet. Das ist ein großes Archiv geworden. Ist einfach mal.
It's become a great archive, and it's really great that the VOC records so many of our events.
Also es ist, glaube ich, nicht nur geil, es ist auch einfach einzigartig, weil
I think it's very great. I don't know of any commercial service
und Professionalität an den Tag legt.
That can do this amount of professionality in one day, and this is simply done because people all have interest on this.
Sehr weit in den Schatten. Und das ist schon echt sehr beachtlich.
This is very great.
Das ist überhaupt immer das Coolste, ja, wenn wir den Rückblick machen und uns überlegen können, wie können wir die sind ja wieder geil loben, weil die so tolle Arbeit.
It's always nice when we do this that we can compliment everyone on the work that they've done in this presentation.
Ich wundert, weil meine Stimme immer krächziger wird. Das ist nicht etwa, weil ich gestern zu viel wir hier gefeiert haben. Das ist ein biometrisches Feature.
My voice is not getting a little bit bad right now because I partied too much yesterday, but it's because it's a biometric feature, and the biometric recognition is causing that.
Falls ihr übrigens gedacht habt, die Russen kommen und
in case you guys are thinking that the Russians are coming and they're hacking, as this topic has started later in the year with the whole Trump hype. It started actually in March. But don't worry about that, because we have the Bundesnachrichtendienst, the German intelligence agency. It's a little bit of a longer topic, but in the end it goes a bit about the topic of fake news. It
was claimed that the Russians manipulate the refugees by promising a paradise to them, and that's why we need our intelligence agency, because
Auf jeden Fall niemandem das Paradies versprechen.
Genau, der deckt all die Lügen,
They cover up all the, no, they show all the lies and campaigns of disinformation. We didn't really understand all the logic, but apparently the incredibly important agency is being used against the Russians, but it doesn't really matter. We only wanted to show it to you because we discovered a new task for ourselves. Our job is to uncover rumors and trolling online, and that's apparently what we're already doing. I think this is a great task. But I somehow feel like you didn't achieve that since March.
Nee, BSI-Shitter. Und welche?
Die intern doch mit uns.
Whom are we supposed to send this to? The
Also wir müssen auf jeden Fall darauf achten,
Federal Office for Information Security or the Intelligence Agency?
dieses Jahr alles aufgedeckt hat.
Anyhow, before you leave the room, you're going to have to tell us what you uncovered this year, and in exchange, you're going to get a cyberware badge.
Aber es ist schon spannend, was immer
But it's
an den Chaos Computer
interesting to see the ideas that come in. It happens a few times a year. Last year we had it with the Krisennummer Anne Benze, and because you didn't do that, we now have the cyberware. Apparently, our job is now to become the guardians of truth online, but he didn't really achieve that either. So.
Wenn wir die Trollhand haben?
Ja.
Hallo, guckt ihr unsere Mitgliederzahlen?
Ja, deswegen.
Look at the membership numbers.
Ach so, du meinst, die sind?
Oh, you mean they are? Oh, I didn't even think that.
Interessant ist übrigens noch, also ihr müsst immer denken, das ist März.
Remember though, keep in mind this is March, and the person who's speaking here is the president of the NSA investigation office in the German parliament. And the debate has changed quite a bit since. That might be a Trump effect. Well, everyone's afraid these days, aren't they? Anyhow, this is just a laugh. This is something, this is a task for all of you because you are the CCC. So please start uncovering the trolls. Find the trolls online. You know where they are. And we have some more examples of larger products where we did some work, but also they also show the CCC. One of them is ZDF Info, which collected some nice images. If you look through their archive, you actually find more than you find on YouTube. And this was actually repeated in October. And secondly, a great thing that also won a prize, I think. Quarks & Co., a German science TV show, devoted one episode to the cyber war. I mean, this is a great screenshot, isn't it? But they showed 7 cyber phenomena that you should know about. And this was in March, and they already spoke of the darknet, which is when Moritz Bartel showed what the darknet is, and that there are other things you can do there than buying weapons and drugs. Thorsten Schröder and I made a static and dynamic analysis of the Loki Trojan that affected lots of hospitals in Germany, and in a half-hour show we got quite a lot of leeway to explain how this Trojan actually works. So these were 2 parts of 7 of this show, and I met one of the editors of this a few weeks ago, and they were really proud of the prize that they won, and we're very happy for them. It's a great example of how you can explain, more complex cyber topics in half an hour. And we got lots of good feedback for it. And we're quite happy that there's now more, that editors are taking more time to explain these things, and that they're also receiving, they're being allowed to explain it. I don't quite remember what prize they won for it, but I'm very happy that they got one.
Ja, noch so ein Thema, wo wir dieses
Okay.
Jahr ein bisschen
A topic that we have been looking at proactively
die Frage Malware and Advertising.
is the topic of mail is advertising.
Situation einstellt, dass wir offenbar die einzigen sind, die darüber reden können.
We are obviously the only ones that are able to talk about this. It's actually changed though, but in the beginning it was that way.
Also worum es halt geht, ist, dass man natürlich
What it's
über
about
die Art und Weise, wie heutzutage Online-Werbung verteilt wird,
is that in the way that advertisement is currently transmitted, is that malware
so gut wie man
can be sent over the browser.
kann man halt auch Malware darüber ausliefern. Und die Werbebranche möchte darüber eigentlich sehr ungern reden. Und da gab es halt so ein paar Vorfälle.
The majority of people don't like discussing it in deep,
Malware-Advertising über größere Portale ausgeliefert wurde.
but these can be delivered also through much larger portals.
Um mal dieses Thema so ein bisschen
To
anzureißen und
go, so we went a little deeper into this
das
topic,
hat uns seitdem eigentlich das ganze Jahr durch begleitet.
and so we led the public through this situation, which led to larger cultural discussions of this.
So unter den ganzen Ausschusssitzungen dieses Jahr so mein unterhaltsamstes war, da gab es, ich muss kurz erzählen, diese eine Geschichte.
So a few of these
Einer von den Werbeleuten,
discussions
die da auch waren, meinte so, ja, also wir liefern doch Milliarden von Bannern aus und da passiert einfach nie was.
were also discussed within the news, specifically with regards to advertising delivered malware, and
Spiegel Online.
which is amusing, because then there was example of Spiegel themselves delivering malware via advertising.
Da auch man Adblocker verbieten soll, ne?
So this led to discussions of whether people should use ad blockers. There was also, in a similar time, slightly later in the year, there was also a concrete political
Genau, darum ging es halt in diesem Ausschuss.
developments in this front
Meine persönliche
because of
Vermutung
this.
ist, das wird wohl nichts.
My personal feeling is that this discussion isn't necessarily going to lead to anything due to technical grounds.
Ist halt groß. Wir haben mittlerweile Blockerquoten halt so zwischen 30 und 40% bei den großen Zeitungen.
So for example, the large newspapers have anywhere between 30% to 40% of their users are using ad blockers.
Also nur um mal klarzustellen, welche Position wir da vertreten. Wir sagen halt,
So this position that we're
Content selber zu filtern, so Adblocking nicht halt Eigeninteresse und wesentliche
so it's not necessarily in everyone's interest that everyone has ad blockers,
Geschäftsmodelle, die damit verbunden
but we want to increase the discussion of these issues about whether people should be using ad blockers with whitelisting, for example.
Für sich anwenden kann und sollte.
Und weil Frank immer in diese Anhörung geht, Frank, ich möchte eigentlich noch kurz noch was zu dem Bild sagen, bevor
I'd like to talk a little bit about this picture before we go. So they've allowed a gimmick within this.
Frank haben eingangs, das ist genau der Moment, den ich da gescreenshottet hatte, gefragt, wie viele Leute im Publikum mit Werbung ihr Geld verdienen. Und die Hände, die ihr da seht, ich weiß nicht, ob das Bild gut genug ist, da hoch der halbe Saal.
The question that was asked was how many people in the public are receiving money from these ads.
Die Republik hat halt ein bisschen anderes Publikum als der Kongress.
Und die haben halt also vor das Bashing, ich meine, konnten ja noch nicht wissen, was kommt. Die haben so ehrlicherweise die Hand gehoben. Ich fand das total,
Man hörte dann noch so das eine oder andere leise.
One hears that from some of them quietly, oh shit, as the talk was over. In Frankfurt, there's currently that's where the talks are going, and they're asking why do we actually need it in some type of legal ban against ad blockers. Well, the ad blockers make it so that the media companies can't actually get any money from this. When the amount of ad blocker users go up, then the amount of financial possibilities that these companies have goes down.
Wir haben ja schon vor längerer Zeit halt mit der Kulturwertmark mal einen Gegenvorschlag gemacht.
We made a different proposal that they could make a different model of how they can make money from media.
Okay, wollen wir die Adblocker und das Malvertising verlassen?
Okay, do we want to end this topic now?
Also ich weiß nicht, wollen wir die Adblocker nochmal?
Do we want to block the ad blockers?
Ja gut, habt ihr wahrscheinlich mitbekommen, Adblocker gibt es jetzt überall.
Ad blocker blocker, there are some of those now in many different newspapers.
Blocker.
And then there's ad blocker blocker. You could then have a weapons race between the two.
Oder so, damit wir Block nicht immer aussprechen müssen?
4.0, Adblock 4.0.
Okay.
Ja, aber also es ist schon ganz interessant, wie die argumentieren. Da gibt's ja jetzt auch.
It's very interesting how they are debating with each other. There's already a court case about this. The user uses the ad blocker, and then the website uses an ad blocker, and then they create an ad blocker, so that he could see the site still without advertising by getting around the ad blocker.
Und das soll dann illegal sein.
And then that should become illegal.
Somit haben wir jetzt auch die Gegenseite adäquat gewürdigt.
Ja, wir müssen ja aber nicht alle Seiten adäquat würdigen. Hallo, ich meine, jetzt kommt der Staatstrojaner. Ich bitte dich, wir würdigen nicht alle Seiten adäquat.
Ich finde, das war sehr adäquat gewürdigt.
To handle both sides adequately, we're talking about the Staatstrojaner now, the state-sponsored Trojan horse, so we don't have to cover both sides equally. There's a second trial on the Staatstrojaner, where the BKA got the permission to make a Staatstrojaner to use it on communication that's running, and also to look through a whole hard disk if you can get to the content. We waited for it a long time since the laws from 2009, and there were a lot of problems in this law, like acoustic, living space, surveillance, and BKA got a lot of permissions there. And the second Staatstrojaner didn't really has much to do with all of this malware, but the debate in the CCC about the Staatstrojaner changed a bit. We did a new statement about this and went to a trial, but Staatstrojaner is not as important anymore as in the first thing, and we got a new right of data security, more or less, and with we were curious about what will be illegal, how they handle the problematics of the source TKÜ, which actually makes communication difficult, and how much the law enforcement will talk about how their own Staatstrojaner works, if they do it themselves, if they buy it somewhere else, and so on. With the functions, there was a nice compromise I didn't read before that way, that it said, yeah, if you can't do this, can't have less functions in the Trojan, you just have to go on according to Vorschrift. Well, it didn't get much better, it didn't get much worse. Of course, the Interior Minister, Federal Interior Minister, showed their political white line continue saying that they really going to need this, and over the year the mobile version of the Staatstrojaner got added that they want as well. Didn't really change much. It's just like a zombie, like Vorratsdatenspeicherung.
Kurz angesprochen haben, so diese Notwendigkeit, die bei Strafverfolgungsbehörden und Geheimdiensten
law enforcement needs and how much are they allowed to go into our computers.
Die alten Folien durchgesehen, das waren nämlich übrigens.
We went through the old slides.
Es gibt jetzt einen optischen
attention, there will be an optical trauma, maybe, because we, in 2007, looked at the BKA law and there's this old slide, and it's so ugly. And I don't know what kind of slides we had. It wasn't my design. After many years, 10 years, it doesn't really get us much to look at this because Staatstrojaner didn't get cut down very much. But there are positive news. Well, I don't know. The positive thing, we got into it, but not with this shirt. Yeah, this was the negative thing. Went to Bundestag. Hello. Yeah, you're not on the visitor list. Could you look on the expert list? Ah. There was this listening at an area we are not asked that much. And it's taxation. It was about the law to modernize taxation, risk management systems, and while looking into tax documents, it says put your taxation data into Elster. It will go into the cloud, and there will be a AI. They didn't call it that way. In this cloud, there lurks a AI, and it's called risk management system. And this is supposed to, after economic criteria, look for people to look into this risk management system. Should go through it with efficiency stuff to make sure where people can be visited to look into the papers. And it's pretty interesting. Doesn't seem that bad. Let's do it a computer and not some finance administrators terrorizing people every year. So scaling back a little bit, but if you put it into a risk management system, you don't really know if this risk management system maybe just look at patterns of irregularities, and the risk management system may only be faster and more efficient with people to look at, and maybe you find something, but can the risk management system look at one indicator while there may be more, or algorithms, thoughts, how can we build the system in a way that if we want to use it, I can hinder it of learning something wrong or discriminate against people, like discriminate dumber tax evaders against smarter tax evaders. Why? Because dumber tax evaders are less obvious and stuff, but we want to have it reliable and valid against both groups, and it gets more interesting. We can test it, but it's more interesting if we want to see
ein Erfordernis bei so einer Entscheidung. Ich meine, das ist eine...
This is something that's necessary in these decisions. I mean, it's annoying to get the taxman at your door, and if he says, yeah, our computers said that we should go through your papers, and that might be a bit shady, but if it's an arbitrary decision, it's not better either, so we need basic transparency, and we want to prevent this from being arbitrary, but we also want legal equality. So eventually we recommended to always test this risk management system against a random sample, so you can't make all your decisions based on this risk management system. Instead, you always need to have a random sample that allows you to check if your risk management system is better than the random sample, and secondly, see if there's a certain focus, if the system focuses on certain groups too much. And of course, you could suspect people who have interest in evading taxes from having a particular interest in being allowed to develop this system. I also posted that I'd be happy to publish my own version of a risk management system that adequately manages my risk of tax evasion. That's not all. It turns out they've been doing this for 13 years, and now they suddenly need a legal basis for it.
Und es ist wirklich, also denkt man so, auf Anhieb würde man sagen, natürlich ist
And
das
you'd
gut, wenn
think
die
that
nach
it's
ökonomischen Kriterien
good
entscheiden,
if
weil
they
dann
decide
geben sie
based on
nicht
economical
so viel zum
criteria,
Wollen,
because
das
that makes them go after the
ist aber tatsächlich,
big fish where they can get lots of money.
und das Grundrecht
But in fact,
vor mehrere Herausforderungen, weil
this
die nämlich
challenges
unabhängig
the
und
Constitution in
ungeachtet der
several
Summe,
ways, because
ihre Aufwände da betreiben sollen.
they're
Und
supposed
das
to
natürlich
exert
durchaus
themselves
eine lange zu diskutierende Frage
indiscriminately.
ist, wo wir wahrscheinlich wissen, auf welcher Seite wir stehen. Immer
And this is going to be a very long debate, because, I mean, we know whose side we're on. Check the big fish. But there are some interesting legal conflicts. I find it quite interesting to take part in that hearing, and my recommendations were turned into the opposition's claims, and of course those got rejected, as always happens when we get invited. And the question of what goes into these algorithms has been concerning us the entire year. What criteria for optimization go into these algorithms? And it's a debate that we've had a lot this year and that we're going to have next year as well. So can we leave tax law now? Yeah, because it's not really our main interest. So back to the federal Trojan horse that we were talking about earlier. If Austria has a similar problem because the Austrian Department of Justice wanted a federal Trojan as well, the debate is quite similar, at least the contents are. Quite a few NGOs immediately were critical of this. I found it interesting that the Austrian press debated a lot about money, because millions of license fees that this thing was supposed to cost led to an economic debate that we didn't really have in Germany. You know, nobody asked if you might do something more worthwhile with the money that this thing would cost. Austria debates the things that, you know, we call source surveillance, so software that listens to conversation as it happens. And their discussion was, no, their statement was about more than just the technology behind this. It was far more. It had a far bigger scope.
Ja, also wir waren natürlich irgendwie froh, dass wir dazu
So we were happy that we were able to contribute to this by helping a bit.
Aber letztlich hat dort die Opposition und die Zivilgesellschaft einen ganz ordentlichen Wumms entwickelt.
The opposition did a pretty good job in Austria.
Eine Veranstaltung, die CryptoCon in Leipzig, die übrigens
I mentioned CryptoCon in Leipzig, which had really nice artwork. I mentioned them as an example of one of our events. And I think this is one of the trends that hasn't yet stopped.
Ganz viele dezentrale Clubs im CCC haben getan und sich
many decentralized clubs in the CCC have joined up for crypto parties and smaller events, and they actually have a program of their own and have questions of their own. And as we mentioned earlier, the recordings are online. So I have to give a big thanks to the C3 VOC, who have been doing a great job both at this event and during the past year. This trend has continued, and I think there's a certain need for this in the population. A need to learn how to protect your own data. I think the debate has turned towards instant messaging as well, or a bit more than encryption of your stored data. And then there's another event that we shouldn't miss, which is the Goulash Programming Night with this awesome picture that's actually been going on since 2002 and has been growing ever since. And these days it has such a large array of topics, almost as big as ours here. They speak of net politics, they speak of encryption, and as always with our local events, it's quite workshoppy. You can get together, you can build stuff. I think it's a pretty good example. I'm ashamed to admit that I didn't try the goulash this time either.
Wir wollen uns noch mal einmal ein bisschen größerer Debatte zuwenden.
And there's a larger debate that we shouldn't forget, which was sparked by a certain event. This is the most stupid hacker photo I've ever seen. I mean, they're always silly, but this is the most ridiculous.
Aber kann nicht echt sein, ne?
But it can't be real, surely.
Das ist gar kein echter Hacker.
Red Nose. Do you think it's not a real hacker? No, I don't think so. He doesn't have a black hoodie. No sunglasses either.
Das ist ein Troll.
I think it's a troll. No, Linus. He's a clown. Or maybe he fell into a blue color pod. No, what's he doing with his red nose? He's trying to update Windows 10. Oh, that's what turned him blue. Okay, we're going to have to ask the audience, what's this thing supposed to symbolize? What's the red-nosed guy doing?
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Hacker.
A cyber clown. No, it's not the cyber clown.
Aber der Cyberclown hat auch einen Anzug an, habe ich gelesen.
But apparently a cyber clown also wears a suit.
Du bist aber gemein.
Steht doch da.
Okay, auf welche Debatte wollen wir hinaus?
No, what debate are we talking about?
Oh, okay, ich habe voll die falsche... Also
ich weiß auch nicht, wie Sie... Also ich weiß auch wirklich nicht, worauf du hinaus
I really don't know what you're getting at.
Im Hintergrund ist dunkel.
The background is dark.
Deswegen geht er ins
Darknet.
And therefore he's going to the darknet.
Und was macht er da?
And what's he doing in the darknet?
Was macht er im Darknet?
Surfen?
Also auf dem Bildschirm sieht es gerade aus wie Solitärspielen, aber...
It looks like he's playing solitaire on the screen, but...
Nein, also diese Darknet-Debatte...
No, the Darknet debate
auch mal wieder etwas größer.
Was a bit larger this year.
Die Frage, was passiert denn da eigentlich?
People ask what happens in the darknet.
Ja, wir sollten mal den Anlass erwähnen, warum das eigentlich losging.
Also es gab einen
But let's talk about how this was sparked. There was a mass shooting in Munich. The perpetrator was white, and therefore it was a mass shooting and not terrorism. He did shout some Nazi stuff, but it was unlucky circumstances, and apparently he tried for months to buy weapons on the darknet, and it didn't take long for the debate to start, where people pointed at darknet bulletin boards. And he tried to buy a weapon on the darknet and spoke of his darknet problems of buying a darknet gun on the darknet. And he had some trouble with this, but it was pretty obvious that the darknet is shipping guns to us, and therefore the darknet is bad. And therefore we had to do quite a lot of explanation, quite a lot of explaining as to why encryption isn't bad, why encryption isn't, people were saying, but it has to, surely we can only partially encrypt things, and we can make sure that only encryption is only legally used for legal purposes. And we said, yeah, you can do that. Well, you can prevent this from happening, but you need classic police work for that. And it didn't take long to find the person who sold a gun to him on the darknet. And I think we might have given the deciding hint there. For if you want to actually ship something somewhere, you have to meet up. You can't just download a gun. You have to send money. And this meant that they eventually met up in person. And precisely because they met up, because he tried to buy the gun on the darknet, that's the only reason why we were actually able to get at the vendor. If they just met up in a bar, or if they stumbled upon each other, then we would have never had the ability to search for it as we did. But now we were able to do a test purchase and eventually catch the vendor red-handed. So the darknet actually helped, combined with classic police work, to find this illegal gun vendor, as opposed to a classic criminal who'd probably do their work using different channels. And then there was this report from Hungary of a guy who ships guns from Hungary to Germany that are legally available in Hungary but not allowed in Germany. So they're shipped with ammunition that's allowed in Germany, but then it's modified when once they arrive in Germany, and they're freely available in shops in online shops in Germany. And as long as we don't solve problems like these, we actually know the name of the person who sells these guns, but he's working completely above board. And we're not doing anything to prevent this, but we're trying to prevent the darknet. So it's not really the debate doesn't really try to solve the problems. It's just trying to fix the symptoms. It's not trying to fix the problems. Let's just hit at the symptoms, and that's what's really frustrating about our press work. It's having to explain these things over and over again. And one last thing, this anonymity of purchasers and vendors, which people find unbelievable, is a large problem, is a huge problem for all parties involved, because the vendor doesn't know if they're talking to policemen right now, and nor does the purchaser.
So Dread Pirate Roberts can really speak to the danger of this, that you're unable to know exactly who is on the other side of the transaction. So the ability for law enforcement agencies to basically create risk for illegal weapons trafficking on the darknet is something that we haven't effectively spoken about.
Wobei man kurz noch ergänzen sollte, dass diese Webseite Migrantenschreck hatte dann
so this website Migrantenschreck
Datenreichtum, der dazu führte, dass
had some issues also with data privacy.
Also von den Käufern und dann auch Kraviermann war es, glaube ich, erst losgegangen und hat die dann auch mal besucht zu Hause und sie gefragt, warum.
So they asked the seller at the house.
Also eigentlich nimmt sich nicht so viel, ob jetzt irgendwie Darknet oder nicht Darknet.
So it really didn't matter whether they use the darknet or not.
Also ich denke, das Kernargument war an der Stelle eben auch, die Waffen gab es
The
schon
key argument was that the weapons, they've always been, or there's always been a problem with illegal weapons, and it hasn't gotten worse because of the darknets, and it hasn't flourished because of the darknet. And so it's hard to keep the debate on the core of the problem. I'd like to add something.
Wir haben hier zu meiner Überraschung eigentlich.
So we have a little bit of a surprise. So we really had to do a lot of explanation to people about what specifically the darknet is. We really didn't expect to have to do that in 2016. And I really don't think we're done with this. Like the fact that we're still going to have to describe this. My impression was that this impression or this idea hasn't really gotten into the majority of people of what the darknet is. People think of it purely as something for pedophilia or drugs. And that's because technically is that so the impression of the darknet is simply wrong. So I can really imagine something in the future. The fact that if we haven't, because we haven't defined this, it just made the debate very hard for us. I've tried to describe the darknet. For example, what happens on Tor. The big problem was that for most journalists, because I have to use the word the term darknet because otherwise they don't understand it. Unfortunately, we're forced to use this word. And so it's hard to explain the fact that so many people on the world need to use this for safety purposes. So it's not a dark net. And this impression that it's a dark net is the problem, because every person who uses it actually makes it better. Applause.
Und wenn ihr mal Spaß habt oder haben wollt,
when someone wants to make a joke out about this or do something funny, I've had a lot of discussions. I've discussed with a journalist about the fact that because Facebook has an onion address, is it a darknet or not? And that's been very amusing to have that discussion.
Aber ich glaube tatsächlich, dass unsere Arbeit da zwar mühselig war, aber auch von
I believe that the work we had to do here was pretty painful, but still necessary.
Ich glaube, das BKA-Chef war ja dann, nein, wir wollen das nicht verbieten, aber wir wollen davor warnen.
So the legislators said that we didn't want to prevent it, but we still had to keep raising the issue.
Durch eine relativ frühe Präsenz in den Medien.
So we could have had a much earlier presence in the media to guide the discussion in a better direction, so that it didn't once again go in the direction of trying to prevent a darknet or forbid the darknet.
Bei der Gelegenheit natürlich daran erinnern, dass ihr auch alle Internet habt und euch an den Debatten natürlich immer beteiligen sollt. Ja,
so it's hard to remember that not everyone, or that everyone has access to the internet, and the debate should be relevant to them.
Wir haben eigentlich aus einem ziemlich unglücklichen Anlass
now we have a very unfortunate press release
für die Begnadigung von unserem Ehrenmitglied eingesetzt.
Ja, Bradley, Chelsea Manning.
So this is on Chelsea Manning.
hatte im Juli einen Suizidversuch begangen. Dein Computer ist, glaube ich, gerade einen Suizidversuch begangen und sollte dafür bestraft werden.
She tried committing suicide and people tried to punish her, but that's not allowed. It's, and yeah, that's punishment for trying suicide. It was supposed to be jail isolation. And I think that's very depressing to see how this human is handled there. And it's 3 years ago, August 2013, that Chelsea Manning was jailed for 35 years for leaking war crimes of the US military and a few diplomatic stuff that was published on WikiLeaks. And this example that got statuated there is isolation jail, which is torture according to international conventions. And we have to criticize this time and time again, the conditions of this jail link, this prison sentence.
Also, dass wie mit dieser Person umgegangen wird, kritisieren
how
wir auf
Chelsea Manning is handled, we criticizing, and we want to have her let go, and because we think she did a service to the world. I think that's obvious.
And
Barack Obama doesn't have much time left, and in these times, which he's the lame duck president, there are a lot of NGOs who want this, and we are supporting this, and perhaps there are some more people who should let go. Can that make that clear to stop the blinking?
Bei uns ist oder bei euch?
Say if this is our problem or your problem.
Den Test machen, ja?
Have you tried turning it
Do
on
a
and
test. Try turning it on and off again? No, it's not us.
Vielleicht doch.
Maybe it is.
Können wir nochmal ran.
Ja, ja.
Yeah.
Okay, wollen wir...
Ich wollte übrigens mal kurz hier Kritik loswerden. Es wird hier schon getwittert. Also es fällt, glaube ich, auf, dass wir nicht ganz so wach sind.
It gets twittered here, and three tired angels for cons. But nobody's bringing us martyrs, so fuck you. Yeah, good. Go on without me.
Go ahead, ihr schafft das.
Go ahead, you can do it.
Ja, können wir eine neue
Yeah.
sehen, oder?
Can we see the next slide? No.
Aber guck mal, das steckt ja gerade gar nicht dran und trotzdem
It's not plugged in and it's still
vielen
blinking.
Dank. Das ist doch hier.
Oh, thanks. Thanks.
Vielen
That's
Dank.
nice. Thank you very much.
Tja, da können wir uns auch bei der Gelegenheit gleich nochmal bedanken bei den ganzen Technik-Engeln, die
Yeah,
immer rocken.
let's be grateful to all the Technic Angels who are rocking this thing.
Ja, wir sind noch nicht fertig mit dem Staatstrojaner, diese DRs.
Not through with this federal Trojan horse.
Eine Gelegenheit benutzt, auch das Urteil nochmal zu reflektieren.
We could go into the judging again.
Da ging es um einen
It
Beschluss
was about
der Justizministerkonferenz, die ja nochmal
of a
betont hat, dass sie auch nach dem
Ministry of
Urteil
Justice conference where the ministers of justice got together
und zwar über die bestehenden gesetzlichen Grundlagen hinaus.
to have a basis that goes above the what's legal, and the opposition, the left, asked us to make a technical speech about it,
also zu dem Staatstrojaner, der nur laufende
about the federal Trojan horse
abhören soll.
that was supposed to only listen to running communication.
Bei uns eine Regel, die findet man immer auch
And our rule is,
ccc.de.
what you find on CCC.de.
In den Jahren so
The
beibehalten.
rule is to also have this statement on CCC.de.
Mir ist deshalb ein bisschen was aufgefallen bei der
And
Gelegenheit,
I
damit euch
noticed
nicht,
something
vorenthalten wollte.
I want to see,
ich wollte mir den Beschluss der Justizministerkonferenz nochmal durchlesen.
There's the statement of the Minister of Justice conference. It's always in different cities. And there's this website. And this screenshot was at night at 5. And this is a complete website. The Ministry of Justice only has this. What's this? It's just my brain. Am I got the wrong way in the matrix? Did you have Adblock turned on or something? Yeah.
Ich meine, ihr könnt ja gerne jetzt mal nachgucken, deswegen habe ich euch die
Well, I think just look at it. Yesterday, so what's is this just me? Do you want to tell us something? Well, that's a statement. Justice works best if you have a lot of cameras.
Aber ich glaube, du hast sie genau in dem Augenblick erwischt, wo die Umstellung auf Ministerium für Wahrheit und Liebe.
Well, maybe you just caught them while they're trying to put their update to being the Ministry of Truth and Love. This small gray arrow where the camera looks, maybe there was supposed to be some functionality, but it didn't do anything. Did you go after the mouse? No. Well, they don't have any humor. You did this at the end of the 80s. You tried on the little arrow. Somebody of you can check this. But the camera is moving, so whatever. That's just a small. Let's go on.
Und zwar mit einer Aktion, die wir gestartet haben,
stuff we did.
Eigentlich so ein bisschen aus der Kalten, über die Nexus mal reden wird.
It was a cold start, and Nexus will talk to us about it. I'm still busy with the page of the Ministry of Justice.
Ja, also gibt da, man hört, es gibt da draußen so Secure Messenger.
There are secure messengers out there.
Secure Messenger, dass man dann auch über neue Angebote
and it happens that there are new stuff. You can see because it gets easier and better and more colorful. The most colorful was
Babcon, ist das nicht Boobcon?
Babcon. You're saying Babcon is not Boobcon, Boobcon, Boobicon, whatever.
Oder Boobcon,
wie auch immer. Whatever.
Auf jeden Fall
befinden sich Boobcon-Nutzer.
Boobcon-Users.
Ich will niemanden beleidigen. Also.
I don't want to insult anyone. Do you know anyone? Some people are standing up. Go away, because they're insulted by the question.
Naja, auf jeden Fall ist das
ein
Startup. Die haben
small startup.
geschrieben, sie wollen
They want to
den nächsten neuen
make the next new Made in Germany super secure messenger with encryption and everything.
Naja, und
2
Wochen nachdem deren Angebot
2 weeks after that,
habe ich mich erdreistet, mir das mal anzugucken.
I just looked at it
und habe mir einfach diesen Messenger mal installiert
and installed the messenger
und habe mal so ein bisschen reingeguckt, was die da so machen, weil
looked into it, what they are doing.
Kann man schön Java auspacken, dekompilieren.
Just to decompile everything.
Und ich habe da keine Verschlüsselung gefunden.
There was no encryption.
Das hat mir ein bisschen Sorge gemacht. Ich habe schon an meinen Künsten
was a bit worrisome.
gezweifelt, diesen Code zu lesen. Er war nicht gut lesbar.
The code wasn't that readable.
Frameworks da drin.
100 other frameworks. Whatever gets pressed together. And I thought, well, do a HTTPS proxy, look into it. And in the end,
so ein Konstrukt aus einem eJava-D.
It was a eJava-D, which they worked into a web framework with SSL certificate, with private key on GitHub.
Immerhin gut dokumentiert sozusagen.
Well documented, so to say. Well, it doesn't get lost.
Naja, es ging ja weiter, dass tatsächlich die Authentifizierung,
went on with authentication.
Handynummer da angemeldet.
You authenticate with your handy number. It just went over HTTP because SSL is hard for HTTP servers via Android because certificates and stuff don't fit.
Naja, dann war eigentlich relativ zügig klar, dass man so die Authentifizierung greifen kann. Dann habe ich so ein bisschen
we could look into the authentication. I got into it, looked at the Java thing, wrote a message, and you could read it in plain text.
Die Ende-zu-Ende-Verschlüsselung war ein kaputtes SSL-Zertifikat.
End-to-end encryption was a damaged SSL certificate from GitHub.
Die Leute nicht ganz glücklich waren.
These people were not that happy. Now they have end-to-end encryption.
Vor jeder Nachricht, die man so verschickt, die Gegenseite gefragt haben, ja, gib mir mal deinen Key.
They ask Jasher, give me your key.
Braucht man, glaube ich, nicht drüber nachdenken.
You don't have to think about it.
Also ich glaube, das, was man daraus lernen sollte, man
What you have to learn is
jedem Messenger, der schön bunt ist, vertrauen, dass
don't just trust any messenger that's colorful to do
was sie vorgeben.
whatever they
Wir
say
haben dazu
would
keine
do.
Pressemitteilung oder so gemacht.
Don't
Also
have
Nexus hat
a
da
press
eigentlich
release or something.
Das war so Drive-by, ne?
That was some drive-by.
Webseite gemacht eigentlich, ne?
We just did it in the
Aber-
website with technical
Ja,
information.
also wir haben
Well,
manchmal
sorry
mittlerweile
wasn't
das
worth that much.
Phänomen, also wir müssen halt auch immer gucken. Jetzt
Yeah,
die
well,
Nummer
we-
ist halt auch ein großer, also
The CCC Hamburg is a
war
big
eigentlich fast ein
one.
bisschen gemein.
Was a big mean.
Naja, also
Oh,
dass sie
Sie
exzessiv
haben's
Werbung
verkackt,
in der
ja.
Presse machen.
They
und,
do excessive
den Leuten
advertising in the
Sachen
press
versprechen und dafür auch noch Geld
promise
haben wollen.
people
Und innerhalb
stuff
von
and
2
want
Wochen
money,
auf
and
User gekommen
after
sind. Ich meine, das
2
ist dann irgendwas, was so
months,
exponentiell anfängt.
weeks,
Und wenn die Leute
I
erst
can
mal
crack
wir
it.
sehen das bei WhatsApp.
That's not
Wenn die
really
Leute
that
erst mal
great.
sind, gehen die dann nicht wieder weg und das ist echt cool.
And
gut,
if
also,
people are,
gegen
once
die
people are
Preise-
somewhere, they don't go away. They see this at WhatsApp, which is scary.
Ja, also irgendwie
Lassen wir das.
irgendjemand hat meinen Artikel wohl etwas besser gelesen.
Yeah, somebody read my
Und hat dann
article
angefangen,
better and
JavaD, Webauthentifizierung hat angefangen, die Telefonnummern zu crawlen. Also einfach die
crawled
deutschen
the
Nutzernummern
telephone
direkt
numbers with all the German
und
telephone
dann
numbers.
sich wohl einen Spaß erlaubt, die ganzen Nutzer
And
mal anzuschreiben, über
wrote
den
to
Zustand
all the
zu
guys
informieren,
about the status
dass
of
die
the app.
Das war dann auch sehr viel effizienter als ein
das halt
Blogpost.
Telefonnummer und vor allem auch Geburtstag.
That was telephone number and birthday, because they have a birthday reminder function.
Also ich habe ein bisschen versucht, zu sagen, den Fallout nachher mal zu recherchieren. So.
I tried to research the fallout a few weeks later, but it was absolutely impossible because the entire discussion was in a Facebook.
Dass es hier einige Menschen gibt, denen es auch so geht wie mir.
So I hope there are other people who have the same, who are in the same situation as me, who are not permanently logged in. They have an overlay which is packed over it that is so big that you can't, so you can't see the page and it can't be blocked by ad blocker.
Als Nicht-Facebook-Klicker nicht mehr nachvollziehen kann. Vielleicht klicke ich zu selten dahin, aber für mich war das eine neue Erfahrung.
Ich habe gerade eine SMS gekriegt, also es gibt so die Aussage, dass jetzt
I got an SMS that there are now apparently 15,000 users.
Universum.
bei Babcon, da sind jetzt mittlerweile
That's with Babcon.
15.000 Downloads, also das geht noch weiter.
There's about 15,000 downloads. It's going further, and we're going to see where that goes.
Wir schließen mal den Babcon-Kapitel.
We're going to stop with this topic.
Ja. Und wenden uns einem Projekt des CCC zu, was wieder eher so ein konstruktives Element hat. Wir sind ja da immer ein bisschen...
When one of our projects have a constructive element, we'd like to be a little bit on the safe side. But this here is a good example of one.
Den wir im August vorgestellt haben.
This is the Abmahnbeantworter, which we have introduced in August.
Wir wollen hier gar nicht so sehr viel dazu sagen.
We don't want to say a lot about this.
Weil ja der Vortrag von
For one reason, because we already have a talk about this with the videos online.
gerne ansehen, wo Sie nicht nur was zu dem
You can already look at that.
sagen, sondern auch noch mal ein bisschen was dazu sagen, was seitdem passiert ist.
They don't just talk about this tool, but they also talk about what's happened since then. This is a cooperation between the CCC and the Freifunk.
In dem Jahr, da könnte man eigentlich auch noch mal eine Menge zu sagen, weil sich ja doch relativ viele Leute im CCC auch im Freifunk engagieren.
There's quite a bit that people could say about that, because there are a lot of CCC members who are also in Freifunk.
Wir als Langfristprojekt angelegt haben und darauf sicherlich auch in den nächsten Jahren nochmal.
This is a long-term project, and definitely next year we plan to come back to
Kann
this.
da hinklicken und dann erklärt, ist es, glaube ich, sehr gut, wer im August vielleicht irgendwie im Urlaub war und die Berichterstattung nicht mitbekommen hat. Okay. Wir wollen noch kurz die Meta-Rhein-Main-Chaos-Days ansprechen.
We would like to look at the
Insbesondere deshalb, weil die so ein cooles
MRMCD 2016.
Und weil die auch schon sehr lange gibt und die sich ebenso wie die GPN.
This has been around for a while, and it's almost as long as the GPN, and they cooperate with the higher education of Darmstadt.
Ich fand diese Großbaustelle irgendwie schon geil. Jetzt irgendwie
I found this very big imagination that they had very good.
So schöne Anleihen aus dem Medizin- und Seuchenbereich.
They seem to have taken a lot out of the medical Bereich for the medical area for this picture. They differentiate a bit from many different events because they look a little bit more in the direction of IT security. So this would be a good reason to go to Darmstadt for this. So then we come to another opinion which we have written. And this is about the transparency of consumer protections. And this is about new regulations that the telecommunications providers should be providing. Many were a little bit surprised that the CCC came and complained again. With the considered regulations or the directive, we wanted to have more transparency so that
they would have to document that traffic capabilities. But that was pretty much it. And then a colleague of mine went there from the CCC Network Operations Center because obviously we try to send network experts to these kinds of events. And what he said is that firstly, it should be made clear what this platform should look like, and then to clarify what criteria you have to compare the offerings. And then, of course, the question was how to do it objectively to allow the consumer to draw consequences as to what would happen if the claimed speeds weren't reached, for example, immediately cancelling their contracts. We'd also like to see some more transparency with automatic extension of contracts, because the thing that really hurts competition in this market is that contracts automatically extend themselves after a 2-year term. I now I've had my phone contract for 14 years now, and I can't really get out of it. And it's really subpar. And these consumer rights can't just be based on information, they also have to really base themselves on the ability to draw consequences from it. For instance, these measurements that the telecom companies offer themselves, where you can check your download speeds. Well, surprise, surprise, they actually, apparently you get exactly the speed you're sold. But no, that's it's of course not an independent meameasurement. All these speeds are always advertised as up to such, this certain speed of megabits per second, but it would be nice if those speeds are actually reached. And that was the thing with the shirt. Oh yeah, Linus was wearing an inadequate shirt at the hearing in the parliament. Yes, Alexander Lehman was the expert, and I of course went there as a fanboy, and I was wearing a shirt. You can show it if you like. Don't you have it in your slide deck? No, I don't have it, sorry.
Hattest du ein Foto davon?
Ja. Also ich hatte ein T-Shirt an,
I was wearing a T-shirt that said that alluded to the traitor affair we had earlier this year with netzpolitik.org, and they called the in-house police, and they had some skeptical glances at my T-shirt.
Habe ich eine kurze Gefährderansprache bekommen, und wir haben uns dann im Rahmen
and I got treated to a small talking to, and we mutually agreed that the house was warm enough that I didn't have to wear the hoodie. It all sounds a bit exaggerated, but
die denken sich da was bei, dass sie sagen, okay, sie wollen keinerlei
there is a reason why they
politische Aussagen
don't
im Publikum,
want
im Parlament.
any
Ich glaube, man könnte sich vorstellen, wie das im Bundestag aussähe, wenn sie diese
any
Regeln
controversial
hätten,
claims in the
wenn da die ganze Zeit
audience in
Transparente irgendwie
the federal parliament, and you can see why, because otherwise they would have pyrotechnics and whatnot and banners.
wenn man da nichts für Ordnung sorgt.
I mean, you saw the talk yesterday about parliament
ganz
punch-ups.
freundlich und wir haben uns da gütlich geeinigt und
So they were really quite nice, and
dass sie da eine klare Linie
I can understand that they have to draw a very strict line, that they don't want any political claims from visitors, because political claims in Parliament are rare enough, so you really have to be able to focus on those.
Ja, im Oktober war dann noch so als Jahresendveranstaltung. Ach nee, da gibt's noch den
And
Kongress.
to end the year in October, oh no, there's still Congress. But to end the year in October, we had Hackover. It was sold out as well. Just like the Congress, we have the problem that we can't really grow without leaving the building. Yes, in the International City of Trade Fairs.
Wir haben uns dort auch dann schon unterhalten. Nicht alle haben sich einen Dresscode, also Anzug
Not
gehalten.
everyone stuck to the dress code, which was, of course, suits. No, it was a nice event. It was weird things happening. For instance, the lifts didn't work because some people had turned it into their living quarters. And each,
passte theoretisch noch, man musste halt auf dem Tisch sitzen.
well, in theory, one person would have fit, but they would have had to sit on the table.
Hackover so entstanden?
So what ideas came out of Hackover?
Wo ich gerade einen Job gewechselt habe und jetzt Pendler bin.
Well, it was when I
bevor ich angefangen habe, Bahn zu fahren.
while I was changing jobs, and I started to
Das war so
spend a lot of time on trains.
Das war auch so ein
And I had a small accident. It was a sort of drive-by.
Ja. Also das war so eine Geschichte, man steigt halt in den Zug ein, klappt sein Notebook auf und guckt mal, was der Wireshark so sagt.
You know, as you do, you get on a train, you open your laptop and you check what Wireshark says, and after 3 clicks you see some things and then you write them down, and the next day suddenly the second hit for train Wi-Fi on Google.
Also ehrlich gesagt, hat sich dann rausgestellt, die haben das
Well,
nur eingekauft.
Wi-Fi
Eigentlich nicht nur die Deutsche Bahn,
is really
sondern
just
irgendwie
cobbled
Bahnunternehmen
together.
weltweit.
They just bought it from a service provider, and that's not just the German railway company, it's also in Sweden and the Czech Republic, the UK, they all use similar systems.
Und das Lustige an der Sache ist,
And the funny thing is that the German railway company managed to close down the endpoints that were problematic. They also shut down an open SMP port. I stopped looking at some point because it was so annoying, because the thing was just falling apart wherever you looked. Next time you're on a train, just try trace routing an IP address that doesn't exist, and you see how packets just start running around in circles. They're far away from implementing a Wi-Fi that works. But of course, they always work to a deadline. They don't really have technicians, so they get people to do it who don't really know what they're doing.
Die schriftliche
We must admit that
die Nexus geschrieben hatte, wir sind ja nicht auf die Idee gekommen, eine Pressemitteilung
it didn't occur to us that we would write a press release. So the thing we put out turned out to be quite wrong. But whenever we don't do this and we get press requests, we have problems because we didn't put out a written statement beforehand. So we were surprised by
war es halt eigentlich
this affair.
so, dass wir eigentlich dachten, so, naja gut, so Sicherheitslücken hier und da.
We thought it was so commonplace to have these security issues that there was no need for a separate press release, because it's just business as usual. But it turns out that these are things that are being used by lots of people, and therefore the press's interest is quite a bit bigger. But yeah, we want opponents, not victims.
Also vielleicht ein Aspekt, den mir auch nachher erst bewusst geworden ist.
One thing took me quite a bit longer to realize this project is not a toy. They paid hundreds of millions of euros, and this is what they get. But the point is that all of this isn't that bad because the help is coming. There's the cyberware, the cyber army, if you will.
Ja, das war dann auch eine Spitzenidee.
Yeah, that was a brilliant idea.
Die eigentlich?
Whose was it?
Das war das BSI, ne?
It was the Federal Office for Information Security.
Die haben sich überlegt, naja, okay, also irgendwo brauchen wir ja...
They realized that we need to figure out this cyber thing. Do we have the competence for that? Let's see, no, not really. If we can't get a crisis number and an emergency hotline, then we have to figure out something else. So our coalition treaty included the term cyberware, and we get IT companies to cooperate and to create a pool of cyber defense resources. Yeah, and they visit companies, and the only thing that can be part of it is that we don't have enough people, we don't have enough resources in information technology, and there are probably more interesting jobs in the free economy than writing a press release with risk level 5 every couple of weeks.
So
coming back to the risk levels, we don't really have much more to talk about this because you've already seen it. And so, Frank, have you actually volunteered for the cyber forces? No, still looking for a specific number. You should really consider that.
Ja, da kommt dann der Cyber August für die Kinder.
So then we come to the Cyber August for children. And this is
genau, die wissen, wie man feiert, und das guckt man sich jetzt da ab, und das ist die Motivation, dahin zu gehen. Auf jedem
This is the motivation that everyone will have perhaps a Cyberfest in August, and then we'll have a neighborhood watch of cyber specialists.
Die haben einfach zu wenig Cyber.
I think they don't have enough cyber. I really don't know how this is going to work. I don't think it makes sense to have only 20 person days per year, volunteer donated. Well, it sounds economical. So who are going to be people going to donate 20 days per year? Perhaps ask about that.
Wer, ich kann ja nicht aussprechen, Cyberwehr einrückt, dann sagt uns Bescheid. Das erste Ausrücken der Cyberwehr würden wir
So the first rollout of the cyber forces should be well documented.
Es gibt bisher auch nur Spekulationen über die Dienstkleidung.
There's really only there's only speculation about what sort of uniform they're going to wear, and we're really looking forward to the pictures. Pics or it didn't happen.
Ja, im Oktober hat Fraps ein Gutachten geschrieben für...
In October, Fraps wrote a good article.
Da ging es darum, einfach mal zu erklären,
to clear up
funktioniert eigentlich dieses Internet.
How the Internet works.
So wirklich.
No, really.
Welche Wege nimmt so ein Datenpaket? Welche?
So, which packets go where?
Eine Leitung anzuzapfen und dabei vorher zu sagen, was dafür
what sort of traffic is in different locations? Where the result of this discussion was
anzapft, kann dann irgendwie vorhersagen, welche
So which traffic could you find? Is someone German traffic or foreign traffic? These are all theoretical things that the BND, the National Intelligence Service, is having to worry about. And they've built some beautiful graphics for it.
Vielen Dank an Evelyn, das war also wirklich ganz großartig. Ich habe eine Menge gelernt bei der Arbeit an diesem.
So we've learned a lot from this work.
Ja, also diese Erklärbärnummer, so, also dieses irgendwie erklären, wie funktionieren eigentlich.
So that trying to explain how different things function.
Immer noch im Bundestag sehr gern gesehen. Also
is really appreciated in the Parliament. Because they certainly do understand better.
Also auf der politischen Seite müssen wir natürlich
So on the political side, I'd like to say something that there's also a parallel here.
Also der BND-Gesetz verändert wird. Also
that the BND code will be altered.
Des Auslandsgeheimdienstes erweitert worden.
How we support or work with foreign intelligence services. On day 4 of the discussions, Klaus Landefeld said, we don't want to talk about this.
NSA-BND-Ausschusses und da ging es natürlich
because they didn't want to talk specifically about the connections between the NSA and the BND.
Auch bei der Klage des Frankfurter D6 gegen den BND auch nochmal zurückgezogen werden auf diese Fragen. Okay. Aber vielleicht hilft auch die, Entschuldigung.
Oh, they went back to Cyber.
Wichtig war noch an dem Punkt, wollte ich noch kurz sagen, dass das zweite Gutachten eines C3-NOC-Mitglieds in diesem Jahr, ja, und von entscheidender Bedeutung hier für irgendwie eine Grundfrage dieser ganzen Aufklärungsarbeit des BND.
So when we're talking about the responsibility for the fact that the BND is investing in trying to exploit things to us, and it's a little frustrating for us that all of this money is going into this, and they're putting together papers that describe how the internet works.
Das wollen wir vielleicht mal generell sagen. Ihr habt ja gesehen bei den verschiedenen Stellungnahmen und Gutachten, die wir so verfasst haben. Wir holen uns natürlich da auch immer einfach Leute dazu, die besondere Kompetenzen haben. Aber die sind auch alle Freiwillige, wie wir hier sozusagen Freiwillige sind. Die stecken ihre Zeit darin, Dinge zu erklären oder was runterzubrechen für ihr besondere Technikkompetenzgebiet. Das macht immer relativ viel
these
Arbeit.
experts who get in to voluntarily explain stuff, and they don't really do it for money, and it's a whole lot of work. It's not that much fun, and you can explain a whole lot, but you don't know if these guys who decide things will really understand it. So it's really nice to have a good feedback. This is the second statement. You can see the first one in the pages of the Bundestag, and we did some good work there. Yeah, thank you very much to the people who helped us there.
So I'd like to talk about FIFCON 16, which is the annual day for the freedom of business in Berlin. And so traditionally we're one of the supporters of this. Oh, I was there. Yeah, unfortunately I was sick. It's a pretty cool building. So it's kind of Blade Runner with all sorts of cool stairs, so you don't know where they lead. It was really cool, and it was some pretty good presentations as well. And it was once again totally free for attendance. So
es war kostenlos.
Completely free.
Und auch das wieder eine Veranstaltung, also wo man so mal am Rande.
So this was a presentation or an event where you really could work with, meet new people, and really have a chance to build things together. I really want to recommend it. And you can always download it as well.
So, dann hatten wir schon im Rahmen der Zukunftstagung und im Rahmen der Mitgliederversammlung.
So now we're talking about the future size and about the membership. We wanted to talk about how we support the decentralization, but also to provide some structure. So we set up local.ccc.de to support all of the remote CCC members, to give them a central spot to work with, so that they can even create smaller clubs or minor organizations that they can. So maybe they can create very, very small events and like at a pizza night or something like that, so that they don't have to always go to a larger organization or a larger event. We really wanted to create opportunities for these small organizations, because many of these small remote locations, remote groups, really don't have any opportunities and haven't been able to do anything yet. So we really want to try and connect the good people with the other good people and make sure they have the places to work. And so we want to try and support this decentralization and also provide structure as well. So I'm pretty happy to see how it came together. So the idea it's trying to improve the status of the subscribers of CCC. So there's a new way for CCC members to register.
Ja, und zwar der Vorsitzende ist Dodger, Stellvertreter sind.
Wie heißt der eigentlich richtig?
So these are the
Der heißt Dodger.
Dodger,
the different
Maha, Schatzmeister, Dome.
So the board members are Dajan, Maha, Doma.
Da kann man ruhig mal applaudieren.
Applause.
Okay, wer sich darüber noch weiter informieren will, ist halt tatsächlich ein bisschen.
So something else I want to talk about.
Da gibt es natürlich auch Informationen bei uns auf der Webseite.
And if you want more information, there's on the website.
Wir kehren zurück zur Politik.
So we're going to return to politics.
Ende November, nach einem echt.
So at the end of November, after a long year,
von der Linkspartei einfach keine Ruhe gegeben hat und die Bundesregierung immer wieder auch schriftlich, als sein Recht als Abgeordneter gefragt hat, wie er denn jetzt mit Rammstein und dem.
When the left party just kept asking about Rammstein and drone control from there, and they said finally, yeah, the government knows that over the US relay stations there are also drones being controlled. It was a really long Kampf, and the government had to say something, which was surprising to us. They just didn't say anything for years, and always asked about it, didn't get an answer. And we got an answer, and now we can't say we don't know anything about this, how Rammstein works. And we want to, with this occasion,
es gab dann auch ein Gutachten an
there
den
was another statement to the NSA Council to look into handy location, and this we have had a speech yesterday, I think, by Eric, geolocation methods and mobile networks, where they told us how you can go via the telephone number to get out from which land or region you have to fly over to have this INSIG catcher to triangulate the person who's calling. The person who's in the drone helps to pinpoint this person with a few meters of error, and then kill them That's in the NSA Council to have all this put together. It's very important. And interestingly, these are methods that are all since forever. I don't know when. Since the first speeches about localization of people, pinpointing people. For many years we have these topics with localization and SS7, and so we could have sent the parliamentary member like a list of links, but this phenomenon wasn't that interesting then. Who didn't know it? This connection, geolocation for NSA-BND Council came through this. The BND had to admit that they gave data to the NSA, but they said this data wasn't really for the targeting of the drones. So this connection, it was pretty important, and it's somewhere in Bundestag publications. In this council, they told bullshit about how precise this data is. And of course, they said, no, we wouldn't use any of this data is usable for geolocation. It's of course wrong, and it just frustrates me that we have to write, someone has to write down a whole lot of facts to disperse these lies. And this discussion has gone over a long time. The CCC supported the call that we don't want any war drones, not just with the NSA, but with a very awake press of Snowden papers that talked about this and got public. That the intercept, the criteria, how these people are killed, is called the playbook. They recall it that. Ursula von der Leyen, the Minister of Defense, said that we want war drones too, without saying how we would pinpoint these targets, and we should stay awake with that and don't have it normalized. And I thought the news that the government knew a bit more than nothing is a step in the right direction. And actually, due to international rights, attacks on their own territory, like Rammstein, they are supposed to stop them, which would be nice. Ah, this young guy, you wouldn't know him yet, right? Yeah, I couldn't stop smiling all the time. You have to look at this video, it's epic. Well, smiling, not grinning. Well, it was that a few thousand telecom routers went black because some IP packets arrived which they couldn't really work with, and there was this raging of the IoT botnet. Surprisingly, which nobody could have seen, its security nightmares that all this IoT would wobble the internet. We did this to survive nuclear blast, and now a toaster is flattening it.
Also das war, ich hatte das mal irgendwie so genannt, so die Telekom hatte eigentlich
because the Telecom was lucky while being unlucky, because the attack wasn't against telecom routers but against other models. Wanted to have a command injection with other routers, but these packets got sent forth by these infected bots. If you listen to the port, all 1 to 3 million minutes, there was a packet from Chile, UK, Israel. Not the Russians. No, the Russians just started it, and all the other countries did it. Oh, they initiated it. Yeah, of course. This year it's always the Russians. These IoT botnets, they raced against telecom routers, which were immune against the command injection spot. This getting of the packet didn't really work. And so they had a bigger blackout. Interesting. As the politics saw that, oh, maybe we should do something about this, and Frank and me and many others got invited to speak with the Federal Ministry of Economy. Well, everybody is kind of helping with the cyber thing. Yeah, traffic and defense and stuff, everything is cyber. And it's about what can we do against the bit botnet cyber, and the discussion was interesting, and everyone was pretty much united that it can't go on this way, but how strong we had to take the industry into getting this sorted out. We weren't quite sure, and the minimal thing should be that on every device there should be like some button saying this contains internet, and have description on the package saying how long the updates would be provided, to say how long these could be work without much difficulties, and we're trying to get this at least, and it's not, maybe it's possible, but the devil's in the details. Might take a few years because there is the voting for the federal government, the Bundestag next year. This will be interesting with all the Russian attacks and stuff. And collecting why all of this of the IoT was such a bad idea. We have like 20, 30 years of computers which we try to make secure, and this lifetime of Windows XP, how many times years for this? 15 years where this thing got updates every 1 or 2 months. It was the complexity and the quality of such a product, and having internet, an object connect to the internet at all and sell that, give that to people, and saying that nothing will go wrong sooner or later with security flaws, it would be a problem. That's just, it can't happen. And saying that these things have to be updatable, and that the vendors are taking it seriously, and if they don't, we have to put our own software on it, but we are not supposed to do that too. So what we can do with this thing of internet is much less, much reduced, and we can see if it's just driving a cyber attack against Canada while it does a cup of coffee for you. So we need, because these things are getting sold very cheaply, everything we can buy since decades should buy again because there's an internet in it, like coffee machines, light switches, light bulbs, stuff like this. We have to buy everything again with internet. Sex toys, yeah, of course, it has internet now. Cyber sex is coming. It has to come. And where should all this competence come from? With these prices, where these are thrown on the market, the safety standards fall down first, updates fall down first, and we can see that there's some risk in the next years. And what I saw at this meeting, that the German people said, yeah, it has to be certificated, to say they're made in Germany and quite well, that these are better. What interesting is, if your toaster is there's a virus on it, you don't really it's not really bad for you. It doesn't DDoS or something, it's not bad for you. But for these botnets, there are, for the first time, other people are the ones who suffer. And we have the stuff at home and it doesn't really affect us. And this is getting pretty big so that the North American internet can not work for half a day. And if this kind of scale is reached, we have to think about how to get that in internationally, and having golden German stars doesn't really help us against these people buying China cameras and put into the internet, put them into a botnet.
This question about what type of regulations we can do, this sounds like a bit of a discussion which we have put in a lot of effort into, that a lot of people have thought about, and that a lot of
lizenzierte Geräte ans Internet, damit ist ja auch niemandem geholfen. Also diese Diskussion führen wir halt auch aktiv.
This discussion is, we're actively leading this discussion. The question, how do we take this further, and how do we handle the external cost of these massively purchased external devices? It's not going to go away, and it's going to become more of these, and that could lead to more things going broken and more things not being available.
Weil wenn da draußen 1 Million kaputte Toaster sind, und jeder trägt nur ein kleines bisschen dazu bei, ist es mit der Verantwortlichkeit halt so ein bisschen schwierig.
When a bunch of different people have one of these devices and they all contribute to one attack, then it's impossible to give one person the responsibility for it.
Da ein bisschen mehr Informationen zu geben, als etwa die Telekom selbst oder auch das zuständige Bundesamt für Sicherheit und Informationstechnik irgendwie zur Verfügung stellen wollten.
Ja, Ralf-Philipp Weinmann war da derjenige, der sich...
Ralf-Philipp Weinmann
ich kann vielleicht noch den Satz zu Ende sagen. Der sich die Hardware nämlich geschnappt hat.
Was the first person to get this hardware. Well, a bunch of other people, including me, were speculating about using the code. How is this attack executed on the router, and how the payload was being used?
Hat sich so ein Gerät geholt und konnte dann da einerseits das Problem reproduzieren, und weil
and then I got one of the devices and I was able to reproduce the attack, and because it went so quickly, I was able to find other problems.
Vielleicht sollten wir noch ganz kurz ein paar Sätze zu Netgear.
We'd like to say a few things to Netgear's, to say a few things about Netgear. BSE did not have any information about these few million people on their website. This seems to have changed, that now there's a warning, a product warning for these Netgear devices. And this has information for the public and the type of security hold.
Da finden wir noch raus, was diese Risikostufen bedeuten. Ja, genau. Wir kriegen ja schon mal Zeichen, dass wir nicht mehr so sehr viel Zeit haben.
We're getting a bunch of signals that we don't have much time.
Dem abgebildeten Zeitungsartikel.
We'd like to say one thing about this newspaper article, and this is in Augsburger Allgemeine.
Wie auch andere Erfas
The CCC
an der Erklärbärung von diesem Telekom-Skandal sehr schön gemacht hat, weil nämlich nicht nur erklärt hat, was eigentlich passiert ist.
The CCC Munich also gave a little bit of information to this.
And about hacker ethics and the message that our community would like to send in the occasions like these. It's a nice example that shows that it's not just us doing the PR work.
Eine Vortragsempfehlung meinerseits.
I'd also like to recommend the lockpicking tool. Yeah, and this article from Augsburger Allgemeine is better than the one from the Hanover newspaper, which claimed that hackers are terrorists. Maybe we should shave more often.
Es gab noch eine sehr erfreuliche Nachricht im Dezember.
There was another very
Was man hier
good
sieht, ist
piece
das
of news
Gebäude des
in
Europäischen
November. In
Gerichtshofs
December,
in
this is
Luxemburg.
the building of the European Court of
Das übrigens
Justice in
überhaupt nicht so
Luxembourg,
aussieht, sondern viel,
which
viel finsterer. Sieht voll schwarz
doesn't
aus,
actually
wenn man
look
davor
like that. It's actually far more somber when
Der
you're
EuGH
standing
hat
in
ein
front of it.
zweites Mal
And the
ein
European Court of
Diktum
Justice
abgegeben über die
gave
Vorratsdatenspeicherung und erneut
a
auch
second
betont,
ruling
dass es eben nicht nur
on
Metadaten sind,
bulk
sondern dass man
data
daraus
retention
Menschenprofile machen kann.
and
Und,
clarified
hat
that
auch,
it's not just
sozusagen
metadata, you
erneut,
can actually profile
die
people
Skepsis
based on the data that
gegenüber
was being
einer
collected
anlasslosen, verdachtslosen
and
Vorratsdatenspeicherung zu Papier gebracht. Wir hatten ja bereits
wrote down the skepticism
erste
about
Urteil vom EuGH,
unfounded bulk
wonach
data
die
retention.
Vorratsdatenspeicherung ja grundrechtswidrig ist.
We
Und
spoke about this
sozusagen
earlier this year, and
Bestätigung dieses
it
Urteils, da gibt es zwei Vorlagen.
this validated our judgment that
solche Vorlagen an den EuGH gegeben
it's
wurden.
unconstitutional to retain bulk data like this.
Großbritannien. Großbritannien hat übrigens nicht mal abgewartet, dass sie diese Meinung vom EuGH haben und dann mittlerweile
wait for this opinion from the European Court of Justice because they've now implemented a very extreme version of bulk data retention in their law. They didn't even wait for the ruling. And still, it's a great help in this 12-year war against data retention that is not going to stop with telecommunications metadata. So this was a very nice Christmas present that we should really insist upon, because we also got our own national law on data retention, and we should not get tired of asking our Minister of Justice, Heiko Maas from the Social Democrats, to read this ruling and to change the law that's already in effect. We must insist upon this, especially in the upcoming electoral campaign. And we want to use this opportunity to talk about the Society for Freedom Rights, because this is the first NGO of this kind in Germany. They do strategic litigation, so they use strategic opportunities to complain at certain courts of justice, and we think this is a good idea in special cases. We support them for certain constitutional complaints, and we'll see how this turns out. It's definitely going to be a project that's going to keep us busy for years to come, but I don't think it's a bad development. If I see how top-level politics ignores rulings from the highest courts in Germany and the European Union, especially in the way that they comment these rulings, and this leads me to believe that this kind of strategic campaigning is not a bad idea, and we're going to support them at least when they have when there's a technical topic at hand, and we wish them the best of luck. We have to come to a conclusion, and what could be the better conclusion than the fake news debate?
Fake News haben uns so die letzten
Wochen und Monate fake news have been following us for the past weeks and months. It started a bit earlier, actually. There was a study from a social scientist, by a social scientist, who found out there were social bots. You might know them. They spam you on popular hashtags like 33C3. And it was found out that these bots are being used in the US presidential campaign. There were bots who liked or retweeted Donald Trump's tweets and who flooded certain hashtags and who just disturb the communication channels, and this is a very unpleasant phenomenon because our indicators for success in social networks are being distorted. because you see that this tweet by Donald Trump has tens of thousands of likes, which suggests lots of support. But the truth might be that he just has millions of bots, and just a couple of people actually really like this tweet. And it was quite early in 2016 that people claimed that social bots were manipulating the elections. But if you speak of manipulation, then you have to look at the phenomenon more closely. I will admit that it might have influenced the election, but nobody votes for Donald Trump after they've been intending to vote for Hillary Clinton simply because a Russian social bot had influenced, had manipulated them. I was quite surprised at the statements in the media on this subject. And another thing that was invented this year was the lie, because humanity didn't know lies before. It didn't exist before. Lying means stating an untruth, because nobody had ever thought of that before. And this is going to manipulate upcoming elections. So beware. So look at this phenomenon a bit more closely as well. Stating untruths. There are reports of this having happened before, people stating untruths. And maybe people even try to influence elections before this year. I mean, we have newspapers, we have websites, we have politicians who want to get elected. But with all this political action and all this political publication, people are trying to influence the results of elections, and the same is true for fake news. But I do not believe that our evolution is going to reach a point at which fake news is really going to manipulate elections. As unpleasant as this phenomenon might be, we shouldn't overestimate it, and we should give compliments to social networks, because they want to keep us on their website so they can display more ads to us. And they give us the content that we expect. They collect data on us and allow others to use targeted advertising to display the contents that we want to see. And we saw this for the first time in the US campaign, where advertising was targeted towards a certain goal, and that goal was sending a different message to a potential person, to a person who would potentially elect Clinton, than you would show to a person who would vote for Trump. For instance, you wanted to keep people who were going to vote for Clinton from voting at all. So this differentiation and fake news that was being invented fell on fertile ground of people who, with people who just clamor that the press is lying all the time. And this problem is a lot more complex than it looks at first glance, and I think the only answer that we can give to this is that we live in complex times, and as citizens, we have to understand these problems. It's understandable that people are searching for simple solutions, but we need people to understand the complex times and realize that complex times require complex answers.
Also für mich ist so das Zwischenfazit aus dieser Debatte, dass wir durchaus versuchen sollten, die
my conclusion from this debate is that we need to understand the techniques of manipulation and talk about how they work, but not fall for this hype that claims that these technologies have more influence than they actually do. The evidence of this is quite thin. I read a nice comparison to the 60s when advertising was starting in the 60s in cinemas, where they just swapped one frame of the of the film for a Coke bottle and thought people would buy more Coke by that. And there might have been a small effect, but nobody really proved it. There are these claims, but there's very little evidence. So our job is to make these things visible and to understand what's happening in social networks. We shouldn't overestimate the effect of these things. We shouldn't think that they can pivot an entire election. So the only thing that's left, no, there are two things that are left. First is saying thanks. That's not just for me, but for the entire team, and for people who work on specific topics. We want to say thanks for the support that we get from the club, which is huge and which is massively important. We couldn't work as we do without that support. Although this year might not have been the happiest, we want to stay motivated. I think we have a pretty good team.
Und die Idee, die hinter dem Motto steht, aneignen, das ist eben
and let's
das Wissen, was wir in dieser Community haben,
bear this
auch in die Welt tragen.
Motto in mind and know what we can bring to this world.
Darauf hinweisen, dass es zum jetzigen Zeitpunkt
we also need to make you aware that we don't know yet where the next Chaos Communication Congress is going to be held. So if you want to start booking a hotel already, please be patient. We don't know, it might be Hamburg, there are other places that it might be. We haven't made a decision yet, but we're going to make it as soon as possible. We are going to have enough time to prepare, so we're not going to announce it spontaneously in November. It's going to be announced lots of months in advance through the usual channels. Thanks for your attention. And yeah, just come to us if you have anything that you want us to speak about. Thank you.
Thank you that you were there. We have a little bit of mail from the member office. You were saying that address changes are not good. And they would like to send you this message that they find that address changes are good. The offices know that address changes are